You're listening to Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran. Out of the Box is sponsored by hugmetease.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetease.com. Guys, as always, we are on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio. If you like the podcast, go on iTunes, log into your iTunes account, and leave a positive comment. We love our positive comments. I want to thank all of the listeners who tuned into the live stream for LA Podfest. I was very excited about that. And for the fans who came out. If you missed it, you can still go on lapodfest.com and enter the coupon code Rosie, and you can watch us live from LA Podfest. I have to warn you guys, I was a live podcast virgin, so that was me popping my live podcast cherry, and I was a little nervous, and so I don't know if it comes off in the podcast that I had some nerves on me. And also it was a little awkward with the bright light shining in my eyes. I'm so used to doing it from the comfort of my living room. Even though I've done stand-up for 12 years, podcasting is a little bit different. So, but I'd love for you guys to check it out. And please use the coupon code Rosie, ROSIE. That's my name, because Out of the Box Podcast gets a little bit, a couple bucks from that. So that helps us out a lot. So before I start the podcast, I have a couple questions from listeners and fans, and I wanted to answer those questions. I actually didn't get permission to ask the questions. I did not email these fans back, so I'm not going to say, I'm not going to quote you the two questions that I'm answering. And then maybe in post-production, I can add you guys back if you want me to say who you are. But so I have a listener that is asking me about Solo Finance episode 1 and 2. And their question was about how was I able to save so much money living in Los Angeles and living below the poverty line? Because I talk about that in that episode and a few other finance episodes that I've done about how anyone can do it. You can save money and and invest. Even I was able to do it while I was making less than $10,000 a year when I was doing stand-up full-time and I wasn't doing that well as a comedian. And what I wanted to say is that if you are committed to being financially free, you will find a way. And so I'm going to give a couple examples, but I don't want to go too much into examples because I really think if you're committed that you'll find a way. So some of the ways that I saved money was I rented a room that I found off Craigslist. You know, people always talk about how high rent is in LA, but I would also like to say that because of that high rent, there's always people out there looking to room share, to rent out spare spaces. And so that high rent actually becomes a commodity if you're creative. So I rented a room for $400 a month for 3 or 4 years in this woman's home that I found off Craigslist. And if you guys don't believe me, you can verify with Yoshi Denton's very own Yoshi Obayashi, because he actually came to visit me in my little shack and would always make fun of me. So I did that for a couple years. I lived, obviously in college, I lived in the dorms, and I also lived in another room for rent in East LA that was $500 a month, and I shared it with 4 other girls. So if you're committed to saving money, then you really, really can save money. And I did that for years because I really did not want to give my hard-earned money, which was very low. Like I said, I was making less than $10,000 a year for a few years there, living well below the poverty line. And by the way, I never sought financial assistance from the government. I was on food stamps briefly, only because of Hurricane Katrina in 2005. My sister came to live with me, and that was like a little bit too much as of a financial burden. But when I lived on my own, I never sought government assistance. I never was on food stamps. I never was on welfare, and I was well below the poverty line. So if you get creative, then that's something you can do. Housing and food are the 2 most expensive costs for most people. And I obviously eliminated that by renting the room so cheap. I think one of the places I rented was like $300 a month or something. I mean, it was really, really cheap, and it was just a simple room for rent where I was renting a room. I had my own private room. I wasn't sharing a room with anyone, but I lived with other people, other roommates, and I didn't live in a ritzy area of town. You know, I didn't live in Beverly Hills. I didn't live in West Hollywood. And that's another thing that a lot of people do is They want to live in the fancy area. And guess what? You can't afford to live in the fancy area. People that are living in West Hollywood are, and paying those $2,000, $2,500 a month rents should be making over six figures. But what happens is people that are making less than that, you want to have a good rental to income or housing to income ratio, which I think should be less than 40% of your take home pay. So a lot of people don't do that. They're living well beyond their means. And then when they're living paycheck to paycheck, they have a big question mark over their head, like, I don't understand. Why can't I pay my bills? Oh, it's just too tough out there. It isn't that it's too tough. It's that you're living beyond your means. So maybe you can't get a brand new car. Maybe you have to buy a used car, which is what I had. I had a used Honda Civic. Maybe you can't get a Mercedes, or maybe you can't get an SUV. You have to get, a compact car. And if you're embarrassed by having, a bad car, living in a bad area, well, then you should. That's great. That's motivation for you to save more money and earn more money so that you can move up. But you shouldn't be embarrassed if you don't have money, because that's nothing to be ashamed of. What you should be ashamed of is if you're living paycheck to paycheck in extreme debt and not doing anything about it to move forward with your life. So another thing, I said the number one expense for most people is housing. So I took care of that with the cheap housing. And then the number two expense for the majority of people is eating out, or eating food in general. And so I solved that by shopping a majority, always at the grocery store, never going out to eat. If you have friends that always like to go out to eat, or, for me, I was a comic, so we'd go do stand-up shows and then hang out afterwards. I would not eat, and I would just socialize with people, or order a small appetizer, and then I would eat when I got home. That way I didn't miss spending time with friends, yet I would still, get food. I wasn't starving myself, but I would still eat. Or I would eat if I knew we were going out somewhere before a show or a gig, I would eat before at home. Or sometimes as a comic, you get, meal tickets or drink tickets and stuff like that. So I would not eat unless it was from the grocery store, or, I would shop bargains or the dollar store or whatever. If I never miss spending time with friends or comedians or staying out and doing gigs and stuff like that. I always was out. So that took care of the food costs. Now I'm 31 now. I was in my 20s and I did not have health insurance. And some people might say that's really, really, really risky. I would say that it depends. So first of all, most people in their 20s don't have health insurance. I don't know how things have changed since the Affordable Care Act, but most people don't have health insurance that are in their 20s. They don't feel that they need it. And also, your 20s is the best time to not have health insurance, because mostly people need health insurance when they're, having a family or older or retired. And, maybe you think that that's an ignorant statement, but I don't think that people in their 20s really need it unless there's some type of weird, genetic thing that you have. But most people in their 20s break their arm and they don't even go to the hospital or whatever. Maybe go to the urgent care or a clinic, or I don't know. I just personally did not need it. I was very, very healthy. I personally don't think I need it now. I just have it to have it. But I actually did have 2 medical procedures done in my 20s. I had something that looked like cervical cancer, and I went to either Planned Parenthood or a clinic. I can't even remember. So I guess I was leeching off the government as far as that was concerned. But so that was another way that I saved money. And then I had the cheapest insurance on my car, and I was just a safe driver and things like that. But again, it's very, very easy to reduce expenses. A lot of people are like, oh, Rosie, well, I have a kid, or I have a family, or I'm married. It's, 4 of us or 5 of us. And so that doesn't work for us. But actually it does work for you, because the more people, the more money you can save, because you can buy food items in bulk and freeze them. And it's cheaper. That was one thing that went to waste a lot with me for food, was that I would buy food and then some of it would go to waste because it was just me. So the problem is not that things are expensive. The problem is that most people don't know how to budget, and they also don't know how to cook, because cooking at home is, I think, 1/5 cheaper than going out to eat. And you don't have to live off PB&J. I cook at home all the time, and I make big stews and big pots and and chilies and other things that are stock pot meals that can last throughout the week. And me and my husband, it's two of us, and our income is almost 4 times or 5 times what it was when I was at my poorest. I'm still living pretty much on the same budget I was in college, with no change. So we're able to save tons and tons and tons of money just by some simple budgeting. So there's a lot of money to be wasted. There's no reason in America, unless you're living off of, under the table money or part-time minimum wage, that you shouldn't be able to live well below your means and also save money. It's just takes a little creativity, and that's it. So I was very, very creative, and that is how I was able to save money and invest and have extra income while I was living well below the poverty line. To answer your question, emailer, thank you for that question. I have another question, second question, regarding, hold on, let me find, I'm unprepared, guys. Sorry, I took a couple weeks off hiatus for the podcast. And, okay, here's a question. This is a good one. So, fan question, clarification about whether or not I don't believe in science, from episode Believe It or Not, which was recently released. And I want to clarify, thank you for asking that question, emailer, fan. I do believe in science. I want to clarify what I said because some people can get confused. I'm not saying I don't believe in science. What I'm saying is that many times people have simple-minded thinking, and it's one way or the other. So it's, Republicans are wrong, Democrats are right, or vice versa. It's, if you believe in religion, you're an idiot. If you believe in science, you're smart, right? So it's one way or the other. And that's a very simple-minded way of thinking. And a lot of people think like that. And so what I've noticed is among the intelligentsia, or the higher thinking crowd, a lot of people think that science is God and science is the end all be all. And if you don't believe in science, you're a freaking idiot. And my only concern about that, which I discussed in Believe It or Not episode of Out of the Box, is that scientists are human beings, and everything that they see is filtered through their own personal belief system. So we assume that science is very scientific, that there are certain laws of science, right? Gravity is a law of science. The sound barrier is a certain, you can measure the sound barrier. And actually, that's a really good example that just came off the top of my head, is that most science is based on evidence. Evidence is based on the past, because you're looking at past evidence to prove something. Now, if you have a narrow-minded perspective, then you can only prove what you already know. Okay, so let's talk about the sound barrier. That's a great example that I just popped up out of my mind. So before the sound barrier was broken, scientists believed that the sound barrier could not be broken, because the evidence that they were looking at showed that the sound barrier could not be broken, and the evidence that they were looking at came from the past, which came from their beliefs, their narrow-minded perspective, because they didn't know any better. So there are things in our current scientific world that are believed to be certain laws of science that may be disproven in the future, because all of those scientific ideas are coming from our current paradigm of belief, right? So there was other scientific beliefs. Maybe there was a scientific belief that we could never travel into outer space, right? And before 1960 or even 1950, I think they sent some things into orbit. There was no scientific proof that we could go into space. So most scientists believe it was impossible. And then after it was done, then our way of thinking was expanded, right? So our thinking evolved. So after the sound barrier was broken, our thinking evolved, and we thought, whoa, you can do this. But before that, we thought, well, we can't do that. So most scientists believe we can't do this. Well, where did they get their information from? They got it from their belief system that, you can't do this. And so I'm not saying that I don't believe in science. All I'm saying is that scientists are human beings, and human beings have this wonderful thing called perspective, and perspectives can be narrow-minded. So even, as I said in Believe It or Not episode of Out of the Box, even if you're a Nobel Prize winning physicist, you only know what's in your paradigm. So you can only study physics within that paradigm of beliefs. So to answer the email from the fan, I do believe that science, is very good, but I don't believe in the cult of science where people think that, well, if you don't believe in science, you're an idiot, and scientists are always right. And if you're religious or you're that, or you're this, or there's something that's unexplained, you're an idiot. And that science is basically the end all be all. It's facts. You can't argue with it. Because there's been many times in the history of the world where there were quote unquote scientific facts. Example, we can't travel faster than the sound barrier. And those facts have been later disproven. So all I'm saying is keep an open mind and absolutely do not treat science as facts. Because it's not. Because, maybe 50 years from now, 100 years from now, half the stuff that we believe, or think is scientific fact, another scientist with a higher level of thinking will disprove things that we currently think are true. Because that's happened time and time and time and time and time and time and time again. Atom bombs thought, you thought we couldn't split an atom. And guess what? We did it. So it's not that it can't be done or that it's discovered. It could always be done. We just didn't know about it because our level of thinking was too narrow-minded. And many, many scientists, even brilliant scientists, they can only study science within their narrow-minded perspective. So I do believe in science. I don't believe it's the end-all, be-all. I definitely think that there is more out there. And if you don't think that there's more out there and you don't think that the current science can be disproven, that is very close-minded. Because as we grow and evolve as a human species, we're going to discover more that's around us. So that's my answer. So this is going to be another solo episode. And what I really, really, really want to talk about is The Matrix. No, I'm not talking about the film The Matrix. I'm talking about the Matrix that we live in. So those of you who have seen The Matrix, or actually those of you who have not seen The Matrix, I'm going to do just a really quick overview of what I'm talking about with The Matrix and how it's related to this podcast episode. So in the film The Matrix, it is a sci-fi movie in which we live in an alternate reality that is in our mind. And you can take a red pill or blue pill, I don't remember, and then wake up from the reality and realize that you're in the Matrix. That is science fiction, at least to my knowledge. But there's a real Matrix that we actually live in society, and it's very similar to the movie. It is a matrix of our making, and that is the reality that we create in our mind. Kind of related to the Believe It or Not episode. It's created in our world, and most people don't even know they're in the Matrix, just like in the sci-fi movie. Most people don't know they're in the Matrix. So what is the Matrix? You're asking, what is the real life Matrix that you're talking about, Rosie? It's just what I said. The Matrix is the simulated reality that we've created for ourselves. And most people think that their reality is a real reality, but it's not. So Rosie, what are you talking about? Give me an example, Okay, so we all wear these fun masks. We put these masks on and we think that they're actually us. So some people have a work mask, right? Like maybe you have a really inappropriate sense of humor, but you can't bring it out at the workplace or you're going to get fired, right? Or maybe, let me give an example. Maybe there's a coworker that, everyone, say you work in, Office Max. Let's say you work at Office Max. This is a completely made up example. I don't want to get a lawsuit from Office Max. And there's a sales associate at Office Max named Betty. And Betty is an annoying bitch. Every single person at Office Max thinks Betty's an annoying bitch, and Betty talks too much, and she goes off on tangents. She tells stories about nothing, and nobody knows what the hell she's talking about. And if you were not living in the Matrix, if you were living in reality, you would say, Betty, you're an annoying bitch, and I can't stand you, and you just drive me nuts. and you have no personality and nobody cares about your stories. Thank you for sharing. But you don't. You live in the matrix. So you put on your work mask, and Betty tells her pointless stories. And what do? You go, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's so funny, Betty. And, you put on this phony face and you pretend like you can stand Betty, but really you want to punch her in the face. And so that's part of the matrix, putting on that mask, that work mask, so that you don't get fired and you don't go cuckoo and, Betty doesn't dislike you and all that other stuff. But we're actually hurting Betty because maybe Betty doesn't know she's an annoying bitch. And maybe Betty thinks her stories are interesting and that everyone laughs at them and everyone, no one's ever told her anything. So she just keeps going on and on and on being the most annoying bitch you've ever met. And so the game that we play in this matrix is that we want Betty to, not have a mental breakdown. So we pretend to be all fake, and we don't want to get fired from her job. So we pretend to be cordial. And what happens is that Betty suffers because she probably has no friends and nobody really likes her, and she doesn't really get to have a deep connection with anyone. And maybe Betty doesn't even like herself, and she puts on this annoying bitch character because she thinks people like her funny stories, and she's trying to get attention and feed this deep inner desperation that she's had ever since she was a little girl, and no one's ever really told her that she's an annoying bitch. So she doesn't know. And so these games that we play, they don't really serve anyone. They just kind of keep this fake world moseying about, right? So then we have our fake work matrix where we pretend to be nice to people at work that we hate. And then we have our relationship matrix mask that we put on to keep the matrix in function. And that mask is let me not really show you who I am because I don't really want to be rejected. Right. So when we're dating, we're all friendly and perfect. And women, we put our makeup on and we put our boobs on and we put our tight bra pushing our boobs up and we look cute. And guys, maybe you put cologne on, maybe you take a girl out to a restaurant that you really can't afford or you really don't like that much, but you just take her there to impress her. And so this is all fake, blah, 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 matrixy stuff. And so what happens is we do this and we're conditioned to do this. This is part of the matrix. That we're conditioned from a very young age not to be authentic, because if we're authentic, something bad's going to happen, right? Remember when you told Uncle Johnny he was creepy or weird, and then your mom was like, oh my God, don't say that. That's rude. Or, maybe you farted in public and your dad was like, that's rude. You're not supposed to fart in public, but you're just doing what people do. You're being an authentic little kid because kids are very authentic. They don't have any of this matrix stuff. They're not brainwashed yet. So kids, they're just whole love, energy, honesty, authenticity, laugh if something's funny, do whatever. And then society, we go and we brainwash them into our little matrix world. We're like, these are the rules of the matrix world that we made up. And nobody likes these rules, but we just keep doing them over and over and over again because we don't know how to stop. And so then we brainwash, these sweet, cute little innocent kids into believing our bullshit world. And that's not cool. And, I know some of you are thinking, well, Rosie, if we didn't have all these rules in society, how would we function? Well, there's plenty of places that don't have these bullshit rules on Earth, actually, and they're fine. And sometimes you can't. You got to put your mask on because, like I said, you're at work or you're in a corporate environment and you don't want to get fired and you have certain bills to pay. So you can't necessarily say whatever you want and be totally authentic and honest. I'm not saying go around, and tell your boss, he's an asshole or whatever. All I'm saying is to recognize the masks that you put on, because that's the first way to realize that you're in the matrix, right? Is to see the little games that you play. So where in your life do you play little silly games? I play games all the time, man, and I hate it. I play the Hollywood game. Oh, the Hollywood game sucks. Everyone in Hollywood hates the Hollywood game, but we all play the Hollywood game. Let's call it the Hollywood Matrix instead of a game. Right. So I was just at LA Podfest this weekend and I saw a couple podcasters that I don't like. And I didn't want to go talk to them because anyone who knows me knows I'm very, very, very authentic. So I didn't want to talk to them because I don't like them. And so that's what I do to be authentic, is I just don't talk to them. But they are playing the whole Hollywood Matrix. So they came up to me and, hey, what's up, Rosie? And they gave me a hug, even though I would never hug them. And they tried to chit-chat with me and be fake and make small talk and act like they were friends with me, and they're not. And so they were playing the Hollywood Matrix, and it sucks. It's not fun. So there are areas of my life where I play the Matrix, but I don't like it. So I try not to play the Matrix. But again, the problem I mentioned earlier is that some of you guys are playing the little games in the Matrix and you don't even realize it because you've been doing it so long that you're like totally brainwashed, right? So maybe you do it at work. Maybe you do it with your friends. I know a lot of people that play the Friends Matrix, and they do it like this. They're the class clown of the group, and they're always making jokes, and they're always being Mr. Silly Pants. And then when something really, really bad happens, like someone dies or they get dumped in a really bad breakup, they don't have anyone to turn to because they're Mr. Wacky Wackadoodle. And so that's a really empty, sad, and lonely place. And they feel like they got to put the wackadoodle face on. They got to be Mr. Goofy Pants all the time, because that's who they are in the group of friends, right? A lot of guys do this. A lot of guys are like, I'm the goofy guy. And then some woman rips their heart out and they're on the verge of jumping off a freaking bridge and they can't tell anyone. That's the Matrix mask that we wear. Right? So the first thing to do, again, I've repeated myself 3 times now, is to recognize, where do you do it? Do you do it with friends? Do you do it with family? Do you do it with yourself? That's a big one. A lot of people are phonies. They're total phonies, right? Maybe they act really confident, but deep inside they're so insecure. Maybe a lot of women do the mom face, the mom mask. I'm a mom, and they have this mom mask on, that they're just a mom, and deep inside, they're a porn star. They want to get like fucked raw. But they have the mom, I'm a mom, I'm just a mom, right? That was inappropriate. But a lot of people have these masks on, and a lot of people have these masks with themselves. So I would recommend, just taking a little inventory and figuring out where in your life do you put these silly masks on and play these little games in the Matrix. Because I'll bet if you're really honest with yourself, you play them in every aspect of your life. And if you don't find places that you play the Matrix game, you're a freaking liar. I'm sorry, we all play them. I'm just admitting to playing them, and I don't want to. But in some, like I said, in some instances, we have to play these silly games. We have to because of whatever circumstance. There's tons of them. Everyone has a little Matrix game going on, right? We have it in politics. We have it in bureaucracy. We have it in, we just have our little masks that we put on, and we just put them on, and we just think that this is who we are. This is who we are. So that's the most important thing to do. The first step is admitting that you have a problem. So the first step is admitting that you are wearing a mask and making a list of the masks that you wear. Now, our goal is to get out of the Matrix. And as I've said in many of my financial episodes, I encourage people to become financially free so that you don't have to play. That is one of the biggest games of the Matrix is the rat race game. And so when you work for yourself and you're financially free and you have enough investments to sustain yourself without going to anyone to validate yourself. I don't know if you guys saw The Gambler, but John Goodman gives a really awesome speech about fuck you money. That's what we all need. We need some fuck you money. He says it's about 2 million. I think it's less. Fuck you money is you can be who you really are. You can say fuck you because I don't need this money to survive. So I really encourage everyone to become financially free because that is one of the ways that you can start becoming more authentic, more yourself. You don't need to be financially free to be more yourself, but those are part of some of the rules of the Matrix, of certain matrices and certain games that you can't really do everything 100% that you want. So that would be one step. Another step would be to start making an inventory of not only where you put these masks on and where you play these games, but why you're doing it. Because some of these masks really don't need to be worn. Some of these masks are worn because we're just used to wearing them, and we really don't need to wear them anymore. So let me give you an example. So growing up, I wore the good girl mask because I really wanted my parents' acceptance and approval. And this isn't a bad thing. You know, this is the way that I was brainwashed and programmed, that I wanted my parents' acceptance and approval. And, you know, most children do. And so I started to make a mask that was acceptance and approval mask. And of course, that quickly disintegrated when I told my parents I wasn't going to med school and I was going to become a stand-up comedian. But I still wear that mask sometimes when I'm with my parents and when I talk to my parents, because there's still that deep desire to be liked and be accepted. And so one of the ways that I get rid of this mask is I simply acknowledge that I'm doing it, and then I let it go. I acknowledge that I am trying to get acceptance and approval from my parents. I let it go, and I just try not to put on the mask. And I try to be authentic with my parents. And it's not easy. It's taken me over 15 years. I started to notice the mask and start to take it off when I was 16 years old. So actually 16 or 17 years now. And I just started to stop wearing it. And so when there was a situation where I could get approval, I just didn't need it. I just let it go. And I'll go into more detail, actually. I had planned a trip for my family. I had made it one of my goals to plan this trip for my family because I really wanted everyone to spend time together. And I even wrote it on a piece of paper. I said, one of my goals, it's a planned trip for a family trip. And I planned this trip for my family. And once things start going in my family and emails start getting exchanged and things start moving about, you know, everyone gets involved. And at the end of the trip, my dad gave a speech acknowledging my mother for planning the trip and putting everything together. Now, the trip was not my mother's idea. It was my idea. And she did not plan it. I planned it. And I have proof that I planned it because I put it on a goal sheet that my life coach and I worked with well before the trip was even begun. And so I could have said, no, that's not true. I planned this whole trip, and look, I have proof that I planned it, and it was really me, and I deserve this acknowledgement because that's what I really like with my parents is acknowledgement and acceptance and approval. But I didn't need it. I noticed that about myself. I noticed that I wanted the approval. You know, my dad was giving the speech and my mom was crying. And of course, my mom took full credit because she loves taking credit for stuff. At that moment, it didn't matter because the goal that I had on my goals sheet was to have a family vacation. So I accomplished that. I got the goal that I wanted. And I noticed myself getting upset, and I noticed myself wanting to wear that mask and wanting to get that acceptance and love and approval. And I just let it go. And I just didn't need that love and approval. And I just let my mom have the love and approval. I just let my mom have all the attention, and I just let my mom have it. And I was okay with it. So that was this instance where I really wanted that mask. I really wanted to put that mask on. I wanted to put that mask on so bad and get all the attention and affection and approval. But I noticed it and I didn't need it and I let it go. And I was fine with it. And so that's how we start getting rid of this mask and getting rid of these layers and this crap and these walls and this baggage that we're carrying. We got to notice it. We got to notice it, and then we got to practice not doing it. Again, I'm not advocating that you go to your boss and say, you know what I think about you, you fucking piece of shit. No, you're going to get fired, right? Or you're going to get written up, or you're going to get whatever. What I'm advocating is for you to notice when it's safe. So maybe with friends, maybe with family members, when in a safe place where you're not going to be penalized. Actually, sometimes you can be penalized with family members, right? Someone might not talk to you or might cut you off financially or otherwise, or might be upset with you. But, you know, and again, we're not going out and attacking people in our lives, but we're just being real with them by letting go of those masks that we hold and not holding on to them and not identifying them and playing the little matrix game that we live in, right? Because then we keep this fake world that's in our mind going around and playing these little games that don't need to be played. Now, are you going to get resistance? Yes. Again, am I advocating you to go running your mouth saying whatever the heck is on your mind? No, I'm not. I'm saying just note, because, okay, so let me make a distinction so you guys understand. So running my mouth, saying whatever was on my mind would be me stopping my dad in the middle of his heartfelt speech and saying, actually, Dad, I'm the one who planned the trip and this is bullshit. Mom can have the attention if she wants the attention. You can acknowledge her if you want. But really, I was the one who did it and, whatever, right? I'm okay with it. I'm okay. I just want everyone to know I'm okay with it. And I'm not upset about it. But just so you guys know, I was the one who planned the trip. That would be me just running my mouth, saying whatever's on my mind. That is authentic in a way, but it's authentic in a hurtful way. And so you want to be authentic in a loving way. You don't want to just go running your mouth and hurting people. That's also not authenticity, even though the example I first gave was to tell your coworker she was a bitch. So there's a more loving way to say that. You can be like, your stories aren't that interesting. Or, okay, I've heard that story. Thank you. But okay, I'm going back on what I said earlier. But the loving way of doing it was just to let my mom have her moment and internally let it go. So there's ways that you can let go of your masks. So another way is to surround yourself with people that allow you to let go of that mask, or people maybe that you've known for a long time that are okay with you letting go of your mask. They're okay with you doing what you do and being authentic. And again, there's going to be some resistance at first. If you're from a background where people have stifled you and then you start to shine, there's going to be a little bit, well, who do you think you are? And that's okay. That's okay. But you need to be clear with yourself what your goal is. So letting go of that mask and trying in it's an exercise. It's like a workout, right? And maybe at first you can only lift 10 pounds, but after you keep working out, it's 20 and 30 and 40 and 50. But, don't break your arm. So be authentic with people and let go of your mask, but don't start burning bridges. Well, Rosie Tran said on Out of the Box, I should tell you what's on my mind. I didn't say that. I said to slowly let go of that mask. So that will slowly help you to wake up and detach from the matrix system. Again, financial independence is a key, huge key. Empowerment is a huge key to getting out of the matrix, because when you have your own money, when you have that fuck you money, you don't need to put up with anyone else's bullshit. And as you guys know, there's a lot of bullshit everywhere, especially in the workplace, especially in family dynamics, especially in relationships. There's a lot of bullshit. And that's all part of the matrix, this self-created reality that we live in that tells us that we have to do certain things. We have to, be polite. We can't fart or burp or do whatever. And it's just all BS. It's baloney. It's fake. And guess what? If you fart in public, the world does not collapse. The only thing that happens is everyone around you judges you. And guess what? You don't need to deal with their judgment, because that's part of the matrix too. That's their judgment, not yours. It has nothing to do with you. Everyone farts. And if they're sitting there judging you for farting, well, you're not supposed to do that in public. According to the matrix, according to reality, animals fart all the time in front of each other. And people in indigenous cultures fart all the time in front of each other. And it's totally fine. And when you're old and you start losing control of your bowels and stuff, you're going to fart in front of everyone because it's human. I'll have to meditate on further ways to get out of the matrix, but those are the starting steps. And again, the most important step is to start realizing that you live in a matrix, aka a game world. And we're all playing these little games on each other. And nobody wins with these little games, these silly little games we play where we, tell people that they look beautiful when it's just a bunch of BS, when we just want them to tell us we look beautiful back, or when they don't really look beautiful, we're just being fake as hell. So that is my episode. Thank you so much for the 2 fans that emailed questions. If you guys have any questions for me, you can email me at info@outoftheboxpodcast.com. If you don't like the show and you're not a fan of the show, stop listening to the show. Don't send me an email. Don't send me a hate mail. Don't send me a conspiracy theory email. Yes, I've received conspiracy theory emails. Don't do it. Just leave me alone. Don't waste my time. I just delete them. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of my time. If you have fan mail, if you have questions, you can email me at info@outoftheboxpodcast.com. If you really, really, really want to help the podcast out, you can go to lapodfest.com. And for the next 3 weeks, the live episode I did will be streaming with coupon code Rosie. And you can see me pop my live podcast cherry. A little embarrassing. It was not my best podcast, but it was a good podcast. It was a great podcast. Bonnie Rotten was awesome, and it was a fun podcast, but definitely I had a little virginitis. As always, you can visit our sponsor, hugmetees.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetees.com. You will get hugs if you buy this shirt, guys. If you're a single guy, you need to have this shirt, okay? Because one of my friends, as I've said many times, this is a true story, got hugged by like 30 people. And a lot of them were beautiful women. iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Go on iTunes. Leave a positive comment. Leave a positive review. I got 10 recent positive ratings, but no review. Guys, the review, that's what it's all about. Come on. Show a little love. Leave a positive review, not just a little 5-star rating. I love the 5-star ratings. I totally appreciate it. I'm totally grateful. Please, please, please leave a review. That helps me. That gives me like a little mini boner, like a girl boner. Follow me on Twitter at funnyrosie. And don't forget, guys, look in that mirror tonight. Long, hard look in the mirror and figure out where you're playing the little Matrix games so you can stop playing them, because it's a total waste of your energy. It's a total waste of your resources. It's like a mental brain drain. It's like a spiritual brain drain to be playing these little games all day. It's like, give it up. Ego. I'm talking to your ego there. It's all ego. Give it up. So boring, so tiresome. Don't you just want to be yourself? Remember when you were a little kid and you could just be yourself? You could just go up to another person and start talking about random shit and just laugh about it? Right? Like SpongeBob or like Mickey Mouse or like just something really cool. And just having like a great time. Just talking about nothing and just being authentic and not worrying if that person's going to judge you, not worrying about having to put your little mask on, not worried about all that bullshit. The sad part is psychologists say that our personality is determined by age 7. So after 7, you start getting brainwashed. So 0 to 7, you're actually an authentic human being. How cool is that? 7 whole years, man. You get to be like a real person. And then the cold, hard world starts beating you down into the game of the bullshit game. That's not fun. So, if you want to have more happiness in your life, more love, more joy, you got to start getting rid of these masks and just burning them. It's like, why do I need to be fake? We don't. The moment I realized I didn't have to be fake in Hollywood was like so cool. Sometimes I still got to play the Hollywood game and I'm like, oh, this sucks. This is like so not fun. It's so not fun. But mostly I try to avoid playing the Hollywood game by only hanging out with people in the industry that I truly and genuinely like. And people that I don't, just avoiding them. You know, we don't need to perpetuate this game. Yeah, all areas of your life. Take a look. Take a long, hard look at the mirror and actually physically make a list with a piece of paper and write what you're getting from it. What are you getting? Attention, appreciation, image. It's all external ego shit. And then just practice not doing that. And practice hanging out with people where you don't have to do that. It's so fun. So cool. You get to practice being 6 again. It's awesome. All right, guys, this has been Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran.